Before you ever took your first breath, something in the unseen already knew your name. Even before your mother held you in her arms, heaven had already written your purpose. You weren't a product of coincidence. You were a divine design, carefully sculpted in silence. And though the world may never tell you this, your soul has always known. You were marked before birth. There is a whisper that echoes in the spirit realm, a call that precedes existence. It doesn't speak in words, but in presence. It surrounds the souls that are sent, not merely born. Souls that were chosen, set apart, long before their bodies were formed. While others entered this world with random paths and empty pursuits, you came carrying something ancient, a light hidden deep within, not to be seen at first, but destined to shine when the time was right. Your life didn't begin in a hospital room. It began in a heavenly scroll, a spiritual blueprint designed with purpose. You may have arrived through pain, through rejection, even through brokenness, but none of that changed the truth. Your spirit came through a portal of destiny. The world gave you a name, but the heavens gave you a calling. And that calling has followed you like a shadow since your earliest days. You didn't recognize it then. You were too young. But it was there, in your silence, in your tears, in your dreams, in the way your heart responded differently to things others ignored. Because you were not just born, you were sent. And the moment your soul crossed from eternity into time, the battle began. Not against flesh, but against forgetfulness. Because the greatest battle of the chosen is not to become something new, but to remember who they've always been. Some marks are carved in the flesh, but others, the ones that matter most, are carved in the spirit. They are not seen by eyes, but felt in presence. And you, chosen one, were marked in a place that this world cannot touch. A divine seal placed upon your soul, unseen, but never silent. That mark was not a symbol of religion, nor a badge of superiority. It was the signature of heaven, branding your identity before you could even speak your first word. It is why you've always felt different, why you couldn't settle where others were comfortable, why you felt the weight of things deeper than your age or understanding. You carry something that cannot be explained, only recognized, a sacred imprint that causes others to either draw near in reverence or pull away in discomfort without knowing why. People sensed it. Even if they couldn't describe it, they felt it. Some tried to label you, others tried to change you, but neither could erase the invisible inscription written by the divine hand. That mark is why your path has been harder than others. Because it isn't just a mark of calling, it's a mark of resistance. Darkness has always recognized the light within you, even before you did. And that's why, even in your early years, you felt opposition, unexplained struggles, unseen battles, subtle rejection. But none of it was random. Every resistance was confirmation, because only those who are marked carry the weight of the unseen. Your spirit was tattooed with prophecy, and the moment you entered this world, that mark began to stir the atmosphere. Not everyone saw it, but the spirit realm did. And it still does. There were signs, even when you were too young to understand them. Moments that seemed ordinary to others, but were echoes of something greater vibrating through your soul. While other children played without concern, you felt things you couldn't explain. You asked questions that startled adults. You stared at the sky, not just in wonder, but as if you remembered something. There was a silence in you, not emptiness, but depth. A deep well of knowing you couldn't put into words. Even in laughter, your eyes carried a weight. Not sadness, but awareness. A sense that you came from elsewhere. While others were immersed in the surface of things, You were quietly reaching for what couldn't be seen. You felt emotions stronger than your age should allow. You experienced connections to places, people, and moments that carried no logic, only resonance. You were always drawn to solitude, not because you feared people, but because your spirit needed space to breathe. There were nights you couldn't sleep, not from fear, but from spiritual agitation. You couldn't name it, but your soul was whispering something ancient. You do not belong here. That sense of detachment wasn't dysfunction. It was divine alignment. You weren't defective. You were different. You weren't broken. You were chosen. And while others outgrew their childhood beliefs, you held on to something sacred, not religion, but remembrance. A lingering echo of what your soul already knew. There is more. There has always been more. And now, as you look back, those innocent moments make sense. The dreams you had, the strange feelings you couldn't explain, the pull you felt toward the unseen. All of it. Echoes of a deeper origin. Echoes of your true identity trying to reach you through time. There is a heaviness that only the chosen understand. A kind of silence that doesn't come from being alone, but from realizing, even as a child, that you were never truly understood. You sat among friends and still felt distant. You were surrounded by family but sensed a space they couldn't fill. Not because they didn't love you, but because your soul was tuned to a different frequency. That early isolation wasn't punishment, it was preparation. It was heaven's way of separating your spirit from distractions even before you had the words to name what you felt. You often wondered, why do I feel this way? You blamed yourself, thought something might be wrong with you. But it was never brokenness. It was sacred solitude. The path of the chosen is not filled with loud crowds and easy companionship. It begins in the quiet corners of life. In lonely walks, unanswered questions, and whispered prayers you didn't even know you were praying. The isolation wasn't empty. It was holy. It was the divine keeping you away from the noise so you could begin to hear something deeper, something ancient, something eternal. While others were being shaped by the world, you were being shaped, in secret, by something far greater. And now, when you reflect on that early feeling of being different, you realize it wasn't sadness, it was separation. Sacred separation. A holy distinction that marked you before time. Because the chosen are not raised by the world. They are grown in silence, molded in hidden places, and revealed only in due season. Every chosen one at some point faces a war no one else sees, the battle for identity. A quiet storm that rages inside, whispering questions louder than any voice around you. Who am I? Why am I so different? What is this emptiness I carry even when everything looks fine? These questions are not weakness. They are sacred keys, keys that unlock deeper layers of your purpose. And yet, in the midst of that search, the world tries to answer for you. It tries to define you with labels, expectations, and limitations. But none of those definitions fit. Because your identity was never meant to be formed by culture, it was designed in eternity. That's why the more you tried to fit in, the more your soul resisted. Every time you silenced your inner voice to be accepted, you felt further from yourself. You were chasing an identity that wasn't yours. The battle wasn't about finding who you are, but remembering who you've always been. You weren't discovering a new version of you. You were peeling away layers that never belonged. And deep beneath all the masks, there was always a spark. A flicker of the true you, glowing, waiting, enduring. That spark is your original essence. The part of you untouched by trauma, untouched by fear, untouched by human opinion. That spark is what the divine marked, and it's the part that darkness always tries to dim. not because it's weak, but because it's powerful. You are not what they called you. You are not the failure, the mistake, the outsider. You are chosen. And that identity doesn't begin with you. It begins with the one who sent you. The battle for your identity was never about discovering worth. It was about awakening truth. And now, you are beginning to remember. There comes a moment in every chosen one's life when something within begins to move. Not loudly, not violently, but deeply. A gentle stirring in the soul. An awakening that starts beneath the surface, soft as a whisper, yet impossible to silence. You begin to feel uneasy in the places you once tolerated. Conversations that used to entertain now sound empty. Relationships that once felt comfortable now feel heavy. And you can't explain it. But your soul knows. Something is shifting. This is the moment your spirit begins to remember. The sacred memory locked within your being starts to breathe again. You don't fully understand it yet, but you feel it. That old ache returns, but now it carries direction. The restlessness isn't confusion, it's alignment. You're not breaking down, you're breaking open. The things that once satisfied now leave you hollow, because your spirit is rising. And shallow things can no longer feed a deep soul. You begin to crave solitude again, but not for escape. This time it's for communion. You sense that something is calling you back to yourself, to the truth, to the path, to the reason why you were sent. The distractions lose power, the noise fades in importance, and suddenly your spirit responds to what the world cannot see. You notice patterns, you feel energy shifts. You start to see meaning in every detail, signs, numbers, visions, sensations, not coincidence, but divine alignment. This is not imagination, it is activation. Your spirit is stirring because your season has arrived. You are no longer who you were, and yet you are finally becoming who you've always been. When the chosen begin to awaken, the world begins to push back. Not because the world sees what you carry, but because the darkness that hides behind it does. Suddenly, you feel more isolated than ever. Friends grow distant, conversations feel foreign. The places that once welcomed you now feel cold. It's not personal, it's spiritual. The vibration of your soul no longer matches the frequency of your surroundings. Your presence begins to stir atmospheres. Your silence becomes louder than noise, and people start to feel it, even if they don't understand it. Some will resist you, reject you, even resent you. Not because you've changed, but because your light exposes what they've been hiding. Your awakening disrupts their comfort. Your alignment reveals their disconnection. The resistance comes not to stop you, but to confirm you. It is a sign that your light is real, that your calling is active, that your path is no longer theoretical. It's becoming visible. Don't be surprised when the world turns cold. It is not your job to be understood. It is your calling to be aligned. The chosen are not called to fit in, but to stand out. And standing out comes with weight. You will be misunderstood, misjudged, and sometimes mocked. But remember this, you were never sent to blend in. You were sent to break patterns. Though, resistance is a signpost, a spiritual indicator that you are not moving backward, you're being refined. The opposition is not punishment, it's permission to go deeper. Don't fear the pushback, because every time the world resists, heaven reinforces, even when you tried to forget. It followed you. Even when you drifted far, it whispered louder. That sacred voice, not external but eternal, never stopped calling you back. Not to religion, not to rules, but to remembrance. You didn't choose this voice. This voice chose you. It was placed within you like a compass of light, always pointing you back to the path you tried to avoid. You heard it in moments of silence, in dreams that didn't make sense, in coincidences too precise to be accidents. It called you in the middle of confusion, in the middle of noise, in the middle of rebellion, because it knew something you were still learning, that your detours were temporary, that your wandering would lead you right back to the origin. This voice is not a sound. It's a memory, a spiritual echo that vibrates from your core. It doesn't speak with volume, it speaks with alignment. When you hear it, you don't just listen, you feel it. You recognize it in your bones, in your breath, in your heartbeat. It calls you by your true name, not the one the world gave you, but the one heaven whispered before you ever had a form. It doesn't shout because it doesn't need to. It was never outside of you. It was always within you. And every time you tried to be someone else, this voice reminded you of who you truly are. That's the grace of the chosen. Even in their moments of forgetfulness, heaven keeps calling them home. And the closer you come to your original essence, the louder that voice becomes. Not because it changes, but because you've finally become quiet enough to hear it clearly. You were never meant to become what the world shaped you into. You were created according to a higher blueprint, a divine design written before time itself began. And now, your spirit is leading you back to it. You're not evolving into something new. You're returning to who you've always been. Before the trauma, before the lies, before the masks. Deep inside, there's a version of you that was never touched by pain, never altered by fear, never diluted by the expectations of others. That version is not lost. It's waiting. The chosen are not called to be replicas of the world. They are called to be reminders of heaven. You were designed to carry light in places that forgot what light looks like. And every moment of awakening you've experienced, every whisper, every vision, every divine encounter has been drawing you back to that design. That sacred alignment between who you are in spirit and how you walk in the world. The returning is not a process of adding. It's a process of shedding, peeling off the layers that never belonged, letting go of the false stories, the imposed identities, the inherited limitations. What remains is your true essence, your original sound, your heavenly frequency. And when you live from that place, something shifts in the atmosphere around you. You begin to move differently, not faster, but with authority. You begin to speak differently, not louder, but with truth. You begin to see differently, not with your eyes, but with your spirit. Because the chosen don't walk through life reacting, they walk remembering who they are, why they came, and who sent them. There comes a moment when remembrance turns into movement, when what was once only a whisper becomes a roar inside your spirit, when the one who walked hidden begins to rise in divine authority. You are no longer questioning. You are no longer hesitating. You are no longer shrinking to fit into places you've outgrown. You are rising, not with arrogance but with clarity, not to impress the world, but to obey heaven. The rise of the chosen is not loud, it is unstoppable. It's not a show, it's a shift, a realignment between the spiritual and the natural. You begin to walk in rooms differently, not to take space, but to carry presence. Your words begin to awaken others. Your silence begins to confront atmospheres. Because when the chosen rise, everything around them begins to respond. The world may not understand it, but the spirit realm recognizes it. Angels align, doors open, battles shift. Because the authority within you is not self-made. It was sealed before birth. You are not rising because you're finally ready. You are rising because the time has come. because heaven has decided the moment has arrived for what was hidden to be revealed. And now, you carry not only a message, but a mantle. You are not only a vessel, you are a voice. You are not only a believer, you are a builder of destiny. This is the hour of the chosen. This is your hour. You were marked, you were separated, you were prepared, and now you rise.